Greetings builders, and welcome to my top 3 video, where every week I choose a topic and show you my favorite builds of it. And today's team is for those who enjoy a little shocking. I'm talking about the amazing lightning builds. And if you wanna try any of those, you can find links for POBs and complete guides in the video description. Let's start with my favorite starter build of all time, the Arc Totems Hierophant with the Templar class. On this build we use many totems that cast the Arc skill for a fast and safe clear speed. Listing the pros of this build, I would start with how cheap and easy it is to complete your Atlas using this build. With almost no investment, you have a powerful, safe and fast character that would be the perfect currency farmer for this and future builds. Now to list the cons, this build doesn't have access to evasion or spell suppression, but don't worry, totem builds are very safe to play. Another issue is that some players might find this gameplay to be a little tedious and too easy, but as you know, this is just a matter of taste. As for budget, you can get it destroying early endgame maps with only around 35 chaos. To comfort but advance to yellow maps, you need to invest around 90 chaos, and for easily completing your Atlas, I recommend investing around 3 divines, but you can totally do it with less. Don't forget that on PoEbuilds.net you can find a list with all the equipment that you need to buy for this build, with direct links for examples being sold by other players. This build needs 3 mandatory unique items, but they are normally very cheap and easy to get. The first one is the Soul Mantle Armor, that causes Socket Gems to be supported by a level 20 spell totem. This grants us an extra support skill gem. We also need a Kikazaru Ring to counter the effect of curses. This is because a side effect of Soul Mantle that will apply a random curse on you whenever a totem dies. Finally, we also need the Self-Flagellation Jewel that grants up to 20% increased damage for each curse on you. Thanks to Soul Mantle, you'll be always with around 9 curses, resulting on 180% increased damage. For clear speed, this build gets 9 out of 10. Arc is an awesome skill that chains through many enemies and easily clear big packs. This build counts with 4 totems casting this amazing skill. The boss damage deserves 9 out of 10. With the right debuffs and all 4 totems summoned, this build can take even big bosses down without any issue. For the survivability, I'll also give it 9 out of 10. As a totem build, you always be far from action while your totems do all the work. So if you know how to mind your position, you can easily complete high tier maps with low grade gear. Above all, this build still counts with high armor and high block chance. Next we have the super popular Lightning Arrow Deadeye with the Ranger class. Even though Vengeance Cascade was nerfed, the introduction of the returning projectile support gem kept this build super fast and strong, which caused most of players to choose it. During last league, I released the Lightning Arrow guide that needed some expensive unique items, and this time I'm going to make it different. On this guide, you'll find 2 versions of this build, a budget and a complete one. Each one has its own POB and passive tree, so you can start this build even on a low budget and upgrade it later. To list the pros of this build, I'm not sure if I would start with its clear speed or boss damage, because both are amazing. This build is also not complicated to put together. I totally recommend you to try it out. Now to list the cons, I would say that this build is not very tanky. Even though you have some defensive layers, it's important to take advantage of your ranged attacks and stay far from danger. If you don't mind your position, you might die. About the budget, you can get it destroying early endgame maps with only around 80 chaos. To comfortably advance to yellow maps, I recommend investing around 150 chaos, and for easily completing your Atlas, I recommend investing around 4 divines. But if you go for the complete version, you need to invest at least 4 more divines. On the budget version, you only need 1 mandatory unique item for this build, the Yoke of Suffering Amulet that causes all of your elemental damage to shock. This way our enemies take a lot more damage. On the complete version, on the other hand, besides the Yoke of Suffering, you also need the Lionized Fall and the Thread of Hope unique jewels. They are expensive but grant a huge boost to your damage. For clear speed, I'll give it 10 out of 10. You fire many projectiles with high attack speed, and those projectiles return to you, pierce enemies, bounce off walls and go everywhere. No one can survive that. The boss damage is also amazing and deserves 10 out of 10. Using 2 Val Lightning Arrows plus your ballistas on bosses will kill them so fast that you won't believe it. For the survivability, I'll give this build 8 out of 10. Even though you have armor, evasion, spell suppression and can kill enemies from a good distance, this build isn't very tanky. If you don't mind your position, you might die. Finally, in first place, here's the super strong, fast and satisfying Lightning Strike Trickster with the Shadow class. Lightning Strike is an awesome skill that used to be on top of the meta, but went down after a couple of nerfs. Now with the new returning projectile support gem, it's back with more power than ever. To list the pros of this build, I would start with its clear speed. Besides a strong melee hit, Lightning Strike also creates many lightning projectiles that run on the floor, killing every enemy on its path. Besides that, this build also counts with the Trickster Ascendance to be super fast and tanky. It has 7 frames charges for extra damage and speed and a lot of defensive layers. Now to list the cons, the first thing that comes to mind is that this build needs a good elemental call to work properly, but don't worry, it's easy to buy one from other players. As for budget, this build is not expensive at all. You can get it destroying early in-game maps with only around 80 chaos. To comfort with advanced yellow maps, you need to invest around 150 chaos, and for easily completing your atlas, I recommend investing around 4 divines. You only need one mandatory unique item for this build, the Yoke of Suffering Amulet that causes all of our elemental damage to be able to shock, causing enemies to take a lot more damage. For clear speed, I'll give this one 10 out of 10. As mentioned before, you have 7 frames charges and a huge effective elusive that grants this build a lot of movement speed. Besides that, Lightning Strike creates many projectiles that run on the floor, exploding many enemies that aren't even close to you yet. The boss damage is also amazing and deserves 9 out of 10. With the new returning projectile support gem, you deal a lot more damage to bosses. This one is an awesome boss killer. For the survivability, I'll give it 9 out of 10. This build has over 100,000 effective HP because of high armor, evasion, spell suppression, fortify, and even a trickster buff that causes you to take 40% less damage. Above all, you are immune to freeze and stuns. And that's it for today, guys. What did you think about those lightning builds? Please don't forget to tell me your thoughts in the comments and leave a thumbs up to support the channel. I wish you guys an amazing day, and don't forget to keep building!